And I'm back again. Had my cup of tea, feel refreshed. So we have our front panel, which has a zipper on, and you're all feeling really proud of yourself because you've put your zipper on. And now I have my back panel. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my front panel and I'm going to lay it right sides together with my back panel so that the two exterior are laying together. And I'm going to position it centrally so that that zipper is sitting along the edge. Now, you measured the first one, or you may have measured it, or you may have eyeballed it. What you need to make sure is that the two exterior panels, the sides of the exterior panels, are exactly level, and that will mean that your zipper is in exactly the same position on this side as it is on the other side. So we're just going to clip it in place once we've got it where we want it to be, and you've made sure that both of your sides are lined up, which mine aren't quite. So I'm just going to do that again. It's better. It's just a fraction, but it's enough to annoy me. I'm going to clip that in place along the edge of the top of the back panel. Remember, the top of the panels is the bit that hasn't got those little cutouts. Those little cutouts will become our sort of bottom corners of our pouch. Now my zipper is closed, so it's right down at this end, so that's fine. And I'm now going to stitch that zipper in place using, again, scant 1/4 inch seam allowance, back stitching a couple of stitches at the beginning and the end. So let's go all the way down. Bit of light on the subject, shall we? And when we get near to where that zipper pull is, stop with your needle in, raise your presser foot, lift up both the lining and the front panel to get to your zipper pull, and pull the zipper pull so that it's behind your presser foot. Continue on with your stitching until you've secured your zipper in place. And there you go. You can see that that's all stitched in place. We're going to take our second lining panel, and with the first lining panel right side up, so you know that you're putting it where it needs to be, we're going to put our second lining panel right sides together, so lining up across that top edge, making sure that everything matches, and clip. Again, we're making that zipper sandwich. And I'm just closing my zipper so that I can get those all on without the zipper pull being in the way. So once you're happy that it's all lined up, you can stitch along that edge. Again, scant 1/4 inch seam allowance. A couple of back stitches at the beginning. Slow down when you go over that zipper tab because it will be a little bit thicker. Now I'm using foam and I've got a size 16 needle in here. I'm using a universal needle. If you're using fusible fleece, then you probably won't need something as big as that. I think 14 would probably be quite sufficient for your needs, assuming you've used quilting cotton on the outside, because you're not actually stitching through any of the fusible fleece. The fusible fleece is within the seam allowance. So I've come down to the other end and I'm almost at my zipper pull, so I'm stopping, needle in, foot raised, just moving that zipper pull out of the way. All the way to the other end, and as we did before, we can trim off that extra little piece of zipper, and then we're going to trim out any foam that we've got if you've used foam. to reduce the bulk in the top by the zipper. Now, some people like to cut their foam a little bit shorter so that they don't have it in this top seam at all. I find that if I do that, it makes my zipper sink in. So I've always had foam in this top seam. I just trim it away. If you're worried about having foam in that top seam, then you can just make the foam 3/8 of an inch shorter, or 1/4 of an inch shorter, so it doesn't actually impact into that seam at all. But it's just a personal preference thing, really. I find my zipper sits better if I've got the foam there to support it. So there we go. I've removed all the foam from my seam allowance. I'm now going to take my lining panel and my back panel and put them together. So now I've got, you can see, we've got it starting to come together. We've got a front and a back, and we've got 2 lining panels. And again, I'm just going to open them up, and either side of that zipper, I'm just going to finger press it to start with, just to make sure it sits nicely. Closing the zipper so that I can be sure it's all doing what I want it to be doing. And then I'm going to take my iron and just press along there, making sure that your lining fabric is behind your exterior fabric. I'm going to turn it over. Just give the lining fabric a little pull from the bottom there, just to make sure it's not puckered at all at either side of the zipper. And again, I'm going to get long threads on the top and the bottom so that I can tie off my threads once I've top stitched. And again, I'm going to top stitch from the point where that zipper starts to halfway across my zipper tab, leaving long threads at the beginning and the end so that I can bury them. And I'm using an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Increasing my stitch length slightly. Sorry, I've gone a bit quiet there. Concentrating on top stitching. Before you start any top stitching, it's always worth just being doubly sure that you've got plenty of thread on your bobbin, because playing bobbin roulette when you're top stitching is not fun. So when you get to the other end, raise your foot, raise your needle, and trim off so that you've got long threads. And the same as we did before, we're going to go back in through the next available stitch hole to take our threads from the front through to the back. And you can see it's starting to come together now. So I'm going to tie off my thread from the front with my bobbin thread. I usually do 2 or 3 little knots just to be sure that everything's secure. And lifting up my lining, just going back in through to take those ends into the gap between the lining and the exterior, so they'll never be seen again. That's the plan anyway. Now we haven't put any additional pockets into this little pouch because I think one zipper is enough for a starter. I know a lot of people are terrified of zippers, and I can't say I blame them because I was for a long time as well. But once you've done one, you realise that actually they're actually quite easy. So let's not be scared. We haven't put a zipper pocket inside. We'll cover zipper pockets at some point in the future, I'm sure. But there we go. That's our lining is in, and our exterior is joined together with our zipper in the middle. How proud of yourself do you feel now? For those of you that haven't actually ever done a zipper before, you've kind of cracked it. So I'll come back to you and we'll have a little look at how we actually construct this, because you can see that we're actually on the home leg now.